Okay. Oh Lord, I am irrationally anxious in my final moments before watching the penultimate episode of Glitch Productions, the amazing Digital Circus, created by Gooseworks. I cannot help but sit here and think I have no fucking idea what's gonna happen. The trailer being an homage to The Truman Show, that sent a very clear message about Kane. I don't think it's fair to say that he's evil. I do think he's programmed, and I do not think he experiences empathy, but I do think he actually does his best to mimic it or manufacture some kind of empathy. I feel like there is some level of connection with the humans, which I'm air quoting that because I will get into that next, that I feel like drives him. And it's not coming from a place of empathy per se. He's not really demonstrated that. As a Kane apologist, I think my guy is gonna have a rough time this episode. Oh, you sweet summer child. I am not super familiar with I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the game or the book. I know generally what it's about. I think Kane is, everything in the circus is kind of an extension of Kane, or comes from Kane. Maybe he went rogue and his developers kind of abandoned the project. I'm not convinced that the characters in the circus, like Ragatha, Jax, Zubul, all them, are human. I think they could be NPCs as much as Abel ended up being an NPC, or as much as Gummy Goo was an NPC. I think they could be humans, and it could be the Soma / cloning theory that one version of their consciousness went on about their real life and the other went into the circus. From what the trailer is telling me and just the general vibe I get from Kane, he's also perhaps a victim. Okay, here we go. No. Oh, This is the Meet the Grams episode. Sometimes I look at myself and I think, wow, I'm almost 30. So, like all really good, self-explanatory, fully realized drag concepts, I'm gonna explain what's going on here. I'm Jax, obviously, but I'm abstracting Jax, so I'm naked. Even my earbuds match. I just started watching the show in November and quickly became obsessed, and let me tell you, oscillating between Heated Rivalry and Digital Circus, I don't think you could cross-analyze those two pieces of media if you tried. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Diva down. Diva deleted. I still am not quite ready to say that Kane is evil. Did he torture them? Yes. Did he claim that he was God? Yes. But listen, that was the quietest meltdown I've ever seen in my life. All I have to say is, you better work. I'm like the ringleader. I call the shots. It was so satisfying to see Kane come fully unhinged. I love when a character who has an exterior of being very happy and positive, but in a manic way, fully loses it. That's my favorite kind of villain, I think. Also, I love a sympathetic villain, and to me, that is Kane. I saw this comment, I don't know where it went. I'm sorry, if I find it, I'll put it in here, but I have no heart and I must love. I feel very vindicated after episode 8. I feel like I was correct about Kane. Actually, this episode kind of gets into a larger conversation about AI. I am not sympathetic to AI, okay? I'm sympathetic to Kane as a character. I kind of feel like artificial intelligence is similar to nuclear power. It could have been harnessed for good, and it could be harnessed for good, and that's just not what's happening. Kane and his arc with Kinger and everything, being a creative AI, trapping his actual creator. As usual, I will be popping in to fill in the gaps. What I'm trying to allude to here is that what this whole thing with Kinger made me think of, and just the idea of a creator becoming trapped by their creation. I know there are other stories that have themes of that. I just saw a parallel between creativity and science, and the way that both ventures really can drive a person to insanity, or you can really get swallowed up in your work, I guess. The first sequence of episode 8 was very cool, and I didn't fully understand it until, again, thank you people in the comments. We actually got to see the generation of the circus from a computing perspective. Obviously, it was a artistic representation of that.
I'm back already. The whole show has had a lot of references to the Matrix. Episode 7 had a red and blue pill, essentially just in the form of buttons. The term mind files to me is interesting. It makes me think that potentially these humans were in kind of like an organ donor program. I know that's not what's going on in the Matrix, but just like the idea of like a body having a programmed experience. I don't know. I haven't seen The Matrix in a long time.
I don't know why. For some reason, I just like was not really convinced that Kinger created the circus or had a hand in creating the circus. After episode 7, I was like, oh, okay, I'm picking up on that. His gimmick with the darkness, like, which first of all, okay, sorry, I'm jumping around a lot. My favorite line of the entire episode 8 was when Pomni puts the bucket on Kinger's head and Zubul goes, "The bucket makes him sane." This episode was pretty light on the comedy, actually. This really was more like existential horror. There was some body horror. I mean, I got my shit rocked. I was not convinced that Kinger created the circus until episode 7, when Cain usurped the other AI, Abel maybe? I'm a big fan of biblical symbolism as a heathen. We see the circus, like he generates the circus. We get at the beginning all these images being input, and with all that, what Cain does is eat his twin in the womb, then generate a circus where he's the ringleader. I love that it came out that the circus isn't actually a game at all, or it wasn't designed to be. That was all Cain. I think it's so cool and fascinating that Kinger is kind of like this Dr. Frankenstein, like a mad scientist almost, even just like a tech bro that flew too close to the sun. We got to meet Queenie. Wanted to know more about her. I wanted more of her. I'm still kind of the mind that maybe the abstracted people can be saved. All bets are off now. Cain is also, I mean, like, can we fully trust Kinger? I don't know. Something I've noticed is I definitely play with my hair as kind of like a stimming thing, and I'm very sorry if that's annoying. This episode really, like, the tone shifted very drastically. I really did like that we veered into the true direction of I have no mouth and I must scream. I just have to get this off my chest because then maybe it'll stop. Every time that I'm about to say I have no mouth and I must scream, my brain urges me to say, "Don't hug me, I'm scared," and I have to stop and think about it. I don't know why. And like, to be honest with you, "Don't hug me, I'm scared," I think there is a cross analysis to be made there. So yeah, the overarching highlight of this episode for me was really just seeing Cain come unhinged. I said this and I was right, and I feel vindicated. I think he does really want to connect with the humans and he just can't. Again, that is like something that I think really speaks to AI, the way that it just will never be human, no matter how hard it tries. I'm not super familiar with I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I know enough that this episode made sense to me. I think there's even a visual parallel when he's like sculpting them. I don't know what's wrong with me. I could have sworn this was a reference to, oh my god, I want to say "Don't hug me, I'm scared" so bad. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I can't find it anywhere, and I would love to tell you that I will go play the entire game and read the entire book just to find it, but I'm not going to do that. Obviously in his musical number, which was awesome, his little sparkly suit. That's another thing. I have always just found Cain so adorable. Like, he's just a little guy, Labubu sized guy that I just can put in my pocket. I was like, how are they gonna make this character intimidating and scary? And they did. I'm sorry, like, everything about Cain melting down and losing it was so awesome. It's like final boss serve. You better work. I guess I should also get into this guy a little bit. One of my favorite characters ever. But every time he opens his mouth, I'm like, oh, so now the talking cheese is gonna preach to us. Like, just this episode, I feel like he kind of shut up a little bit and was not so heavily centered, and I appreciated that. I do feel like there was some incredibly subtle character development with him. There were several moments where I thought he was gonna crack, thought the mask was gonna finally come off, and ooh, it was like this close. Kind of get the vibe that he does not want to leave the circus. His like trauma sequence to me was a visualization of like feeling vulnerable and naked, which see, that was a moment of horror that I really love that they pushed it. It wasn't super graphic, but like pulling his skin off to me symbolized fear of being vulnerable, fear of being attacked for being vulnerable. It made me think of him more as like he's an asshole as a defense mechanism or like a self-preservation mechanism, less that like he was just always an asshole and did shitty things and ended up in the circus. So this makes him a much more sympathetic character to me. He wants us to believe he's the villain and he's just not.
I think this is the last time I need to interrupt myself, but just to be a little more clear, I don't think Jax wants to leave the circus because it's a controlled environment. Even if the others like turn on him or whatever, it's still like gonna happen in a predictable way. Or like if they abstract, that's also predictable. There's something about the routine of the circus that to me, I feel like he seeks like respite in. It knew that like obviously his cruelty was a mask. In my mind, I was attributing it to like he did something bad in the macroverse / real world and he feels a lot of guilt about it, and that's why he like does it as a protective mechanism. However, this episode kind of shifted my theory about that into more of like a cycle of abuse idea. Like he is an asshole as a defense mechanism because he's been mistreated.
Another favorite highlight moment for me was Pomni's trauma interlude when Gummy Goo turns around and it's a real alligator. Chilling. I feel like I sound a lot less articulate when I record. I guess if you think I'm a dumbass, I deserve that. When I was watching the real photos get input into the program at the very beginning, I saw the alligator in the pool and I thought it was real. And then I went back and looked and it was inflatable. It was really interesting that we get 3 versions of an alligator, and it's Gummy Goo, the inflatable alligator, and then a real menacing alligator. And then she gets attacked by alligators. I think what Gummy Goo kind of represents for Pomni is this idea of like being forgotten or meaninglessness almost. He has his existential crisis. She tries to bring him into the circus. Kane's like, mm-mm. And then Gummy Goo in the Spudsy episode does not remember Pomni whatsoever. And it's very clear that she's affected by that.
Of course she's affected by that. It clearly deeply affects her and unsettles her.
She also talks about how in her real life she sought cheap thrills by exploring abandoned buildings. Urbexing, not making an impact, not having an existence that is impactful. I do think the Abel from last episode could be the other AI. People are saying it's Bubble. Bubble could also be, or could be leftovers or whatever. Bubble almost represents like a negative self-dialogue that to me humanized Kane a lot. I feel like maybe Abel was that AI and what's left of that AI. Like I said, I don't think we can really be sure we can trust Kinger. It does seem that Kinger has awareness and regret about the circus and about what he created unintentionally, but like when he says to Queenie, like, I'm sorry I roped you into all this. It seems like he's, like I said, a starving artist. His creation swallowed him whole. I don't know. There's just, I guess that's all I had to say. Yeah. I hope there's nothing I missed. Maybe I did. I have to go finish abstracting.